Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this in the world. I hope you guys are doing okay. So there's been a lot of discussion surrounding Mortal Kombat characters crossing over into other fighting games as of late, most notably Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8. Harada just tweeted out saying "get over here," which is Scorpion's iconic line, as all of you know. But the question is, would a Mortal Kombat character work in Tekken and Street Fighter, and which one would be a better fit for them? Now we know these Street Fighter developers have also expressed interest in Sub-Zero, and it's obvious why. Even though Mortal Kombat 1 has not been received very well, Mortal Kombat is the most popular fighting game franchise on Earth. It has immense popularity in the West, and we've come to learn recently that it is immensely popular in Africa. So needless to say, this game is loved all over the planet, or rather the franchise. Mortal Kombat 1 has been a bit of a downer for people, but as a whole the characters have worldwide appeal. And even though the games are not sold in parts of Asia, and they're not really played by a lot of Japanese, Chinese and Korean players, they still recognize characters like Sub-Zero and Scorpion, and after conversations with multiple people following my video on African players, I've come to learn that they are quite fond of the characters, just not the gameplay. Now, if you were asking me, personally, I think Mortal Kombat would fit best in the Soul Calibur universe, but by the looks of Harada's comments, hearing what he had to say, it doesn't seem like Soul Calibur is coming back anytime soon. I think the fact that they use swords in Soul Calibur would cross over really well with Mortal Kombat. Like, it would be so cool to see somebody like Shao Kahn holding the Soul Edge, or rather having his hammer being taken over by the Soul Edge, so it's got like an eye on it. He kind of has that design in Mortal Kombat 1 anyway, with one of the custom gears. Or imagine the Soul Calibur style nunchucks for Liu Kang. I don't know, that's just me. I've always been on the side of Soul Calibur and Mortal Kombat crossing over. That's always been the ideal, the dream crossover for me. Obviously done in the Soul Calibur style, because the Mortal Kombat characters will be able to show off more of their moves, more of their arsenal, just because Soul Calibur is a much bigger game in gameplay compared to Mortal Kombat.
Transcending history and the world, a tale of souls and swords eternally retold. Soul Calibur versus Mortal Kombat!
Hey, where'd you get that? You get that plant fruit?
That aside, whilst I think Mortal Kombat can easily work in Street Fighter because it's another 2D fighting game, so the transfer will be relatively seamless, having Mortal Kombat characters go into Tekken would be amazing. I can only imagine it would be a great way to earn some goodwill back from members of both communities, because if you're able to pull off an awesome alternative version of Scorpion, for example, in another game, you'd get to see the full depth of Scorpion's martial arts rather than the limitations that he is bound by in Mortal Kombat 1. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to go through a few of my favorite Mortal Kombat characters to give some design ideas for how they could work in Tekken, because I've seen a lot of people saying certain things can't work, and I think people are not really thinking this through. Now, I will admit, most of these videos I do, I'm just talking off the cuff. Sometimes I have bullet points and things to reference, but when I was thinking about this, I thought of like 10 different ways to balance Mortal Kombat characters in Tekken. I didn't even really have to put much thought into it. So I'm going to start with Scorpion. I'm also going to reference Sub-Zero, then Noob Saibot, and finally Shao Kahn. So for Scorpion, he has 3 variations in Mortal Kombat 10, which show off his demonic styles and his sword style, and in the 3D games, he uses a fighting style called Hapkido, which is a South Korean fighting style. Now, Hapkido is a Korean style, different to Taekwondo, as it derives from a Japanese fighting style called Daito Ryuri Aiki Jiu-Jitsu. I think I'm getting that name right. I apologize if I'm butchering it. Although the information surrounding this style and the origins of this style and the person that created it are very, very mysterious. They're completely shrouded in mystery for some reason, but that's a story for another day. But it would be cool to contrast Hwoarang's Taekwondo against Scorpion's Hapkido, and we both know that the Tekken developers and Harada are very good at exploring unknown fighting styles and really representing them very nicely in Tekken. We saw them doing that with Reina. Now, just to be clear, the Scorpion I'm referencing, or I'm referring to, is Hanzo Hasashi, not Kuai Liang, because I would like to incorporate the supernatural element to play around with, especially because he is a big deal in Tekken 8. Personally, I'd keep his Hellspawn stuff out of everything other than heat. In heat, Scorpion could rip off his mask and reveal the flaming skull, so he becomes Inferno Scorpion, much like Kazuya transforms into Devil. Now Scorpion's heat mechanic could allow him to summon hell spawns on screen, the same way Raven is able to throw a lot of clones at you for pressure and mix-ups. Chip damage would actually make sense for Hanzo's Scorpion since he can literally set himself on fire. I'd give him a unique mechanic where he does no chip damage until he gets into heat, where his entire body is on fire, so just being next to him will do chip damage, in a similar fashion to how Aki's poison works, where you lose like 1% over time consistently, but only when you're next to him or being hit. Now there's two moves that Tekken players may have questions about, and that is Scorpion's Teleport and Scorpion's Spear. These moves are synonymous with Scorpion, so you can't leave them out, so the question is, how do you balance them for a Tekken game? Scorpion's Spear can be thrown at full screen to start full combos. Very unsafe in the Mortal Kombat games, but it has a massive reward when landed. Most times you'll only see it being used in a combo as an extender at high levels of play because of how unsafe it is. Obviously, being in a 3D game, you've got to change the balancing around it whilst retaining what makes the move so cool. I would make it an attack the opponent can hard counter. If he's going to pull you in for massive damage, there should be consequences for him doing it. Firstly, it should have absolutely no tracking whatsoever, and secondly, I'd allow the opponent to actually counter it. If they read you and they use their built-in counter, like their punch counters for example, they should be allowed to grab it and pull you in for a single hit that knocks you back. Maybe a shoulder from Feng, a roundhouse kick from Kazuya, an Irish whip into a follow-up from King. You could have completely unique animations which would make it cool and also make people think twice about just throwing it out. On the flip side, I'd make it so if Scorpion lands it, he can get a full combo, but maybe at a reduced rate because maybe it could become a little bit annoying. Or you could make it so it's a mini combo like we see with some moves in the game. The reason I say this is because you want to encourage people to stay up close and fight, which is what Tekken is all about. I'd give it unique uses in active combos like being able to angle it up and down so that you can pick people up for very flashy combo strings and so that it's aesthetically pleasing. But given the move loads of drawbacks would make people very wary about using it, but when you do land it, it's somewhat rewarding for you whilst encouraging the up close CQC combat of Tekken. His teleport would have to be completely changed. There's no way around that. You can't have Scorpion teleporting behind people in Tekken. It will look dumb, it will piss everybody off, and it will likely destroy the fun with Scorpion and people will start complaining about him. So how do you incorporate teleporting? Well, in my mind it's pretty simple. Scorpion is a ninja, so is Raven, so is Victor, so is Kunimitsu. Akuma isn't a ninja, but he had his teleport as well when he was crossed over into Tekken. So to rework Scorpion's teleport, instead of making it a teleport that appears behind you, I just make it so he advances forward. We want the fights to be up close and personal in this game, so similar to Kunimitsu, Akuma and Raven, just have the teleports moving forward with holes in them so you're able to punish him so he can't abuse it. Pretty simple. You could even give it its own mix-ups like Raven, but you get my point. There's other interesting ways you can explore Scorpion's moveset, but I hope that I've made my point clear on this. It would be a very easy thing to move somebody like him over. You don't need to literally copy and paste him from Mortal Kombat because that won't work. You need to make adjustments here and there so the character can exist properly in the Tekken universe. Next up is Sub-Zero. Now right off the bat, I wouldn't give Sub-Zero a full screen ice ball, nor would I give him his ice clone corner traps that he's been known for. Now I know some of you Sub-Zero players are hearing this and going, what the fuck are you talking about? But hear me out. For a character that is meant to freeze you in place, he doesn't do a whole lot of that in Mortal Kombat, considering he's a ninja and there's got to be more interesting ways to utilize his powers. Now like Scorpion, Sub-Zero has utilized several fighting styles over the years, with weapons to go with that. But instead of focusing on the fighting styles, I think Sub-Zero needs more attention than Scorpion on his special moves because they can be extremely game breaking if they're not implemented correctly. We've seen poor balancing with Sub-Zero before. They don't seem to really know how to balance his character very well over at NRS, but I'm going to attempt something that I believe would work within the Tekken universe. Obviously, you're more than welcome to push back in the comment section. Again, like I said, I'm kind of talking off the dome here. Haven't really written anything down for this video. It's just things that make sense in my head. I'd put Sub-Zero's freezing abilities into counter moves. A lot of characters in this game have counter moves, whether that be punch counters, kick counters, or a counter button that does it for both. Someone like Dragunov, for example, has both. Someone like Feng Wei only has a punch counter. More often than not, you can't counter elbows, you can't counter knees, and you can't counter swords or things of that nature. But in Sub-Zero's case, I'd allow him to do all of it using his freezing abilities. I'd make the notation and window for it very similar to that of Dragunov's, for example. However, every time he does freeze you, rather than freezing your entire body for a full combo, I'd make it so he freezes your heat gauge, basically not allowing you to use it for a period of time. Now hear me out, I'll give you my reasoning for why I'm saying that. Countering in this game is extremely tricky, because if you get it wrong, then you get counter hit and usually that extends into a full combo and you find find yourself at the wall. So the reward for guessing right would be shutting down a mechanic of this game for a period of time and giving Sub-Zero the advantage in the neutral to advance on you. Your opponent having access to heat whilst you don't is a massive disadvantage. Obviously, the counter would do some damage, but I always imagine Sub-Zero as being a hard counter hitting character, where you recklessly swing at him, he grabs your shit and he makes you pay for it. Because he utilizes ice in his abilities, the character himself would be like a wall, where you have to really play smart to break him down, and if you become predictable, he makes you pay the price by slowing you down to his pace and neutralizing your abilities. Again, he uses ice. When I think of Scorpion, I think of frantic, I think of crazy, I think fire just raging everywhere. When I think of Sub-Zero, I think more cool, calm, collected, making you make mistakes and freezing you in place for them. I also think rather than having an ice clone gimmick at the wall that could become extremely annoying for people, you could make it so when Sub-Zero wall splats, the way King can grab you on the wall, Sub-Zero could also use a move to freeze you on the wall. This would essentially give Sub-Zero access to setups and higher damage. The walls in Tekken are very intricately designed, and you can hit the wall at multiple angles. If you hit the wall dead on for a full combo, then you can use the freeze to extend the wall combo. If you hit it at an awkward angle, where you'd be closer to the ground, then it could be used for setting yourself up or changing your positions. If you get a sidewall angle or one of those awkward angles that you sometimes get in Tekken, then it'd have different applications. Again, because I'm talking off the dome, I haven't really thought that part through, but we all know that Tekken has very awkward walls, and so this could be utilized in many ways. It could be really detailed in design, which would fit perfectly with Tekken, seeing as one piece of apparatus in Tekken can be interacted with in multiple ways depending on how you land on it. Now, in my opinion, there's no reason to get rid of ice slides, seeing as Law, Lee and Shaheen all have annoying slides that yield follow-ups and advantages on hit, so that should be easy enough to implement. It doesn't have to go full screen, they can certainly balance it, but it's fine to have the move in the game. Outside of all of that, there's no reason why you can't build a full moveset around Sub-Zero with his various fighting styles over the years and implementing some cool animations in the combos that freeze the opponent for aesthetic purposes. We all like looking at flashy combos, Mortal Kombat characters should have no problem doing that. His heat mechanic, or cold mechanic in this case, get it? Never mind. Anyway, this can amplify all of his freezing abilities and make it so attacks have more range, almost like he has ice picks sticking out of his hands, almost like his hands have become swords. I can already see a bunch of things in my head to do with Sub-Zero, but we would be here literally all day going through it. Next up is Noob Saibot. Noob Saibot would be the most interesting character to design because he's like two people in one, especially with the recent iterations of him. I'd keep his damage low, but his mix-ups extremely high. I'd have the shadow come out to do a low, whilst Noob Saibot is distracting with a mid or a high, and vice versa. I'd make him a character that disorientates their opponent over a prolonged period of time rather than being someone that immediately explodes your life bar. I wouldn't make him a ranged fighter or give him access to portals because I think that takes away from Tekken too much. I'd make this character throw straight hands and leave the opponent completely confused at what's going on, but by that same token I think he should be somewhat high risk because of all of the weird gimmicks that would be implemented in him. His grab game could also be extremely powerful as well because he has the clone. It could come out at weird angles to grab you, making him somewhat of a grappler, which would be an interesting twist on Noob Saibot, and it makes sense in my head and it's not something we've ever seen before. Think of it this way, if I had the equivalent of a JoJo stand fighting alongside me, a strong tactic would be for one of the shadows to hold the other fighter in place whilst I throw the hands. It makes sense in my head anyway, maybe that's just because I'm a big JoJo's fan and Noob Saibot is my favourite character to use, so I want to make him as close to JoJo's as possible, but you guys let me know what you think of that in the comment section below. His heat mechanic would simply amplify the amount of clones erecting from Noob Saibot's body, increasing the mix-up potential and the amount of chip that he can do. This is a very baseline idea obviously, but if he could summon more than one shadow to come out of his body to throw a punch or a kick, that would make sense as a boosted ability. In my mind, these clones are not fully leaving his body either, rather they are appearing from his torso, maybe his arm, maybe his leg, for a moment or so, basically allowing you to utilize the clones in many different ways. For example, arms could come out of his torso, effectively giving him forearms like the Shao Kahn. Lastly, let's talk about Shao Kahn, the big bad guy of Mortal Kombat. I'm gonna keep this one short and sweet, there's not a lot that you really need to go into with Shao Kahn. No crazy mix-ups, no silly gimmicks, just straight heavy hands and plus frames. This guy has to be a bully. The hammer gimmick should only become active when he is active and possibly just be reduced to his heat smash. Heavy emphasis on this guy just wrecking you with his bare hands and feet. Headbutts, throws into the wall, Roman Reigns spear, jackhammer, F5 powerbomb, Triple H running knee, spinebuster. He needs to go full WWE and just be an absolute wrecking machine. So in closing, can Mortal Kombat work in Tekken? Of course it can. Almost anything can. They made Negan work, and that was about as left field as you can get. So of course characters within the world of fighting games can work, and for as much hate as MK has received in the last 5 years, the reality is that the hate is only extreme because we love the franchise and we want to see it doing well. And if it has to be through another successful franchise that has the goodwill of the people, mostly, I know some of you don't like Tekken 8, but it's certainly not to the degree of Mortal Kombat, then so be it. Mortal Kombat being banned in places like Japan or not being sold very often in Asia wouldn't affect this because the extreme gore gimmicks wouldn't be present. Just like the extreme gore found in the opening scene of The Walking Dead where Negan was first introduced is not present in Tekken. He has that move that he used to kill Glenn in Walking Dead as his finishing move or his super move in Tekken, but it's not gory at all. It's certainly a violent move, but Tekken, if you really look at it, is a violent video game. You're beating the shit out of your opponents, but they don't depict it in the way that Mortal Kombat does, which is very explicit. Mortal Kombat is banned in some places, but the characters are not. And if they're not going to be gouging your eyes out, pulling your tits off, or ripping your legs off and beating you with them, then it shouldn't be a problem. And fatalities don't need to be in Tekken. There's no need for that. That is a Mortal Kombat exclusive gimmick. We don't need it outside of other games. We're not going to be missing anything. I don't particularly want to see Lydia's guts hanging out. I don't want to see Kazuya's head on a spike. Just not interesting to me. If he was in Mortal Kombat, then that would be cool, but that is a gimmick for the Mortal Kombat world, not Tekken. Both Mortal Kombat and Tekken are immensely popular in the West, and if I'm being honest, this sounds like a match made in heaven. But let me know what your thoughts are on this. Do you think this would be a good move for Tekken? Do you think it could sway public perception within the FGC for Mortal Kombat right now? Would you like to see NetherRealm Studios work more with Japanese developers? And let me know what ideas you have for Mortal Kombat characters in Tekken, if you have any at all. And obviously, if you think this is stupid, let me know as well. Anyways guys, I hope you have an awesome day. Take care of yourselves and peace.